Okay, so firstly, just so I get a feel of the crowd, how many people here are filmmakers? All right, cool. Okay, and how many people here do visual effects? Okay, it's going to be great. It's going to work. Okay, so I remember when Pearson asked me to do a talk for the VFX Festival and told me I only had like 45 minutes to do a talk. I was like, well, what am I going to talk about? There's so much I could talk about. I could talk about how I'm quite lucky to be making features, make that jump from short to features. But you can read about that stuff, right? So I think today I'm going to talk to you about how I made those films and all of the screw-ups I might have done along the way and lessons I've learned. And hopefully you'll be able to take something from that, either it's inspiring or informing. And then afterwards we'll have a Q&A as well. So please do, tot up your questions. So it's basically just me, what I've done in the past, just being a visual effects artist for like 15 years as a compositor. I didn't go to film school. I've always wanted to make films since the age of like 12. I remember watching Blade Runner and Alien. I'm like, wow, I want to do this. I have no idea how it's done, but I want to do this. So I chose the career path of visual effects. So I started off as a compositor, worked on those films, and then kind of went up the ladder as a lead compositor, then eventually became a visual effects supervisor. And I think it was at that point as a visual effects supervisor is when I realized, I think I'm ready to like make something now, because I know what it's like when footage is shot badly, because I end up having to fix it in post. All right. So I remember looking at shots and I'm like, God, if I was directing a movie, I would not make that decision. Also, how to use CGI, like use it wisely. If you got like just something like you want to blow up a car, if you blow it for real, it looks way better and probably be a little bit cheaper as opposed to doing it in CG. Fire, water, all those things. Really learn when to use CG and when not to use CG. And that came from working in visual effects over the years. I was quite fortunate to work on The Dark Knight, so I worked on previs and post-vis. And that essentially taught me about blocking, cinematography, virtual cinematography, just how important the visual effects component is in telling stories. Now, I'm sure there's loads of keynotes today that you might have been to which explains how important visual effects is for storytelling. So I'm not going to really delve into that too much. But it was at that point I realized, wow, I can use visual effects to really make the films. I didn't have to go to film school to learn how to use a camera. If I could get my vision across to the crew and team using visual effects, I'm kind of halfway there. So at that point, I decided to make a couple of short films. First one I made was Project Kronos, which was a fake documentary. And I did that all myself on my laptop using Adobe Creative Cloud. And I didn't want to go and get a big cast. I didn't want to go and hire a big Alexa camera. So we shot it on a really tiny DSLR. And I did all the effects very documentary style. And at the time, I was working in documentary. So I was working at companies like Jellyfish, working at Prime Focus. And so my headspace was very much like in the documentary world. So I was sitting with editors. So I thought it'd be cool to make a fake documentary because I'm in that headspace, use that format. And also I love sci-fi, as already announced. So I made a fake documentary about interstellar space travel. That got released, it went viral. I then got picked up by a Hollywood manager called Scott Glassgold, who ran a company called I Am Entertainment, and I landed my first feature deal, which was Kronos being made into a feature film. But it didn't really stop there. You see, that's the thing. A lot of people think you get picked up by a Hollywood agent and you go and make your film, that's it, quit your job. No, that's not the reality. There's still a lot of work to do. Because even though I've made these 3 short films, and especially Sync, which was my last one that got picked up by an option by a studio, and I'm developing that at the moment, you're still a first-time director. You haven't made a feature. It doesn't matter how many short films you've made, you're still a first-time director. So I still have to write scripts. I still have to work with development agencies. I still have to work with executives. And you're constantly fighting the battle. Now, a lot of other directors that I speak to, they're in the same boat. But with me, what I found is because of my visual effects background, I'm able to knock up proof of concepts very fast. And I realized, having that tool set and having that skill actually gets me in meetings quicker. So here's some news and variety showing that Project Kronos has been picked up. Okay, so the main presentation today is about, I don't make short films. Those 3 short films you see up there, they're not really short films. They're proof of concepts. And the reason why I call them proof of concepts is because I made them not to go into festivals. I didn't make those films because I'm going to put it in a festival, win some accolades, and hopefully, really show off the art form. No, for me, it was like I had feature film ideas for all those 3 films. Those were like tests to show what the world would be like. Most importantly, to tell myself if I could deliver and execute. And secondly, to financiers and investors that, yes, I could pull it off. Because if I can do that 10 minutes for like this such tiny money, which I self-finance myself, by the way, then if you gave me a ton of money, I can do it even better. So that's kind of like the pitch. But you got to remember, times are changing. Just like as you've learned today in the festival, we have great new technology. There's VR coming out soon. Well, it's out already, but in terms of that content. So the traditional ways of getting your film made is different. Back in the day, you write a fantastic script, you get option, and boom, you're going to make your movie after finance and so on. Now, executives don't have time to read a full script. For those who don't know, there's something called coverage, right? So the executives would have an assistant write 3 pages about what the script's about. And if they like the 3 pages, then they'll go and read the script. I don't want to get in that position because I'm not a writer. I'm a visual effects guy and a filmmaker. And script writing is part of the process, but there are guys out there and women out there that just do it so much better than me and been doing it for years. But I have to get the projects moving. So I write that necessity. Okay? So I write the first draft, and then the studio will then bring on another writer, and they'll polish the script. And it's an amazing way to work, by the way. I learned so much working with writers. But what I realized is if I have a film idea, coming up with a treatment and getting them to read that treatment, it's such a ball ache. It's so much work to get them to read your script. Because they'll see, 100 pages, like, oh, I'm not going to read this. I'm going to read it another time. So creating these short 5-minute clips to show what the world's about in my film, do it like a trailer, goes a long way. So what I did was, I'll show you an example of one little mini trailer that I did. Can we have sound? Thank you.
I need you to tell me everything you know about the sinks. The routes, their drop points. We need to know everything. I will find you.
So there you go. Clearly, I'm inspired by big, massive Hollywood movies, particularly Michael Bay. It's not a bad thing. Come on, guys. I like his films. But the point is, it was packaged that way for a specific reason. Because I knew that if an executive in Hollywood or in the UK or anywhere would look at that, they're like, hey, that's a film that I can market and sell. And that's what I'm trying to get across to like a lot of film. It's not what I had to do as a filmmaker. I had to change my mindset. I had to change my mindset of like, I'm going to create this amazing film and tell great stories and it's going to be awesome. And that's it. No, you have to change your mindset and say, I'm going to make a film that the masses are going to watch. And how are the masses going to watch it? They're going to want to see trailers like that, right? So I watched tons of trailers, and trailers are powerful, powerful things. And for an executive, if they can see that, even before reading the script, they should be able to look at that mini trailer or that mini proof of concept you did and go, yep, I know how I'm going to sell this film. This guy can pull it off. I get the story. And yes, there is a market for this movie. We could market this and sell this and make tons of money and rip the filmmakers off. No. But you're ticking the boxes. And that's one of the things I learned being a visual effects supervisor in visual effects is that you overhear all those discussions with the executives and if you're working on TV, the broadcasters, and you realize that visuals sell more than words at this stage. So I did a trailer, and when my manager showed it to the executives, they're like, the next question was, has he got a script? Now I wrote the script already. But it's interesting that I never presented the script first. I didn't even tell them I had a script. I just showed them that. So that is an example of how important a proof of concept trailer is. And this was knocked up very, very inexpensively. It wasn't like I need to go shoot on Alexa. We shot on a Blackmagic Pocket camera, which my friend had. I've got a couple of actor friends. It's just the way it was blocked out, the way it was graded and color corrected, the editing, the sound, all of those things was packaged in a way that I'm pitching that I want to make a movie to be played in the cinema. Okay, one of the most important things you need to remember is, like for me, these are done on spec. For those of you who don't know what spec means, that you're doing it off your own back. No one's financing me to make these movies. And one of the main reasons I did that is because, firstly, I wanted control over the way I wanted to make the films. I wanted to control in the way they get distributed. If I want to put it on Vimeo, I can put it on Vimeo. I don't have to get permission and so on. I own the film. But secondly, because I'm financing this film myself, I'm extremely meticulous and diligent on how much gets spent and where. Like really tight, to a point like every single penny is accounted for. And that's one of the things I got told when I went to the meetings in the studios in LA was the fact that they're interested in working with filmmakers that are fully aware of budgets. Those days where directors come in and goes, I want $100 million to do this film. I want motion control cameras here, and I want my trailer. Unless you're like James Cameron or Ridley Scott, someone really massive who's really, earned that. You're like the new kid on the block. You're like, you're new. So you need to show that no matter how much money you're asking for the studio to give you, or the financiers or investors, that you are going to take care of every single penny in that film. And for me, that was my training, using my own money. And I screwed up quite a few times. I would order tons of food for everyone and have loads of food left over afterwards. I'm like, damn, that was a waste. Pack lunch for the rest of the week. Or there'll be stuff like, oh, I'll hire all those lenses. And then we realize we only need just, the 24mm and the 18mm was good enough. And the 35mm, I didn't need all the other lenses. Stuff like that. And then you learn that you do lots of camera tests. I would go in and sometimes I wouldn't even do camera tests. Hey, let's just shoot it. It's fine. It looks fine with my eye. It'll look fine in the camera. And you realize it doesn't. But you learn from mistakes. And I'm glad that I learned those mistakes on these short films as opposed to a big feature film. Okay, so one of the announcements that came out last year was I was signed up to direct this film called Origin Unknown. So if you Google it, you'll see it's in Variety and Screen Daily. And how I got to do this was pretty much I did the tradition. This is me now, a year ago, where I was being asked by studios to make treatments and pitch material. I had this really cool idea about a film on Mars, and it was about a guy in mission control that's controlling a rover on Mars, and they find some sort of discovery, and the whole film is an investigative discovery movie. And I remember the investor going, "That sounds cool, but what's it going to look like? I get it, but is this the guy in a room? Is this going to be a robot on Mars? What's this thing going to look like? How's it going to play out like a movie?" And I realized proof of concept time again. So luckily, I did this with a production company. So the production company gave me something like, I don't know, £4,000. They go, here's $4,000, probably from their tax rebate or something. Here's $4,000, and just knock something up to show that you can pull this movie off. And it's a low-budget movie. It's it's under £1 million, which is low budget in terms of sci-fi. And so it was just me and one CG guy, Lee Metcalf, who's an ex-escapee, and I did all compositing on it, and we just knocked this trailer up together. So I'm going to show you that now really quickly. But we shot it in Birmingham University, and I'm going to break down why I shot it at the university. But this is an example where I shot something in a day and put it together, and the film got greenlit. So I'll quickly show you that. Here we go. Let's do that.
Go, said the father. Be our eyes where we cannot see, our ears where we cannot hear, our touch where we cannot feel. because the adventure is beyond us. Go, said the mother. Shine light where there is darkness. But beware the dangerous road.
So there you go. So that's, again, it's cut like a trailer. But because we did that, within 2 weeks, it was greenlit. Now, it's, for the investors, it's like the best $4,000 they spent. Because $4,000 they get like £1 million budget in the bank. But if I didn't do that, if I didn't, think outside the box in the way we did that, I don't think this film would have been financed. We probably would have gone through the whole development phase. Like, oh, let's develop the script a bit more, or, let's going to hold back on this, let's see what's going on. And especially, The Martian came out, The Martian was announced at the time. And I remember my manager going, don't make a film about Mars, because all the previous Mars films didn't do too well. Luckily, The Martian did extremely well, and they were like really excited, but yeah, let's do a Mars film. But yeah, so I'm just going to quickly show you really quickly how some of the things I had to do to get that done. So utilize your location. So this is all in Birmingham University, right? So the mission control, I use a TV gallery station. I remember going there and go, wow, I can make this work. And my producer's like, seriously? Like, how? I don't see mission control here. But if you've got it in your mind, trust me, it's going to work. Utilize your location. So we shot on the Blackmagic Ursa. So we shot it at 4K so that we can then, pan and scan and rescale if we need to, and for better light sensitivity. We use the corridors a lot. And even little devices like this, even the control panel. So like, just use what you have. I didn't want to go in and go, oh, I need this, and that, because I only had a day to shoot it. So, I like the idea of coming in and say, what can I do with that? What, it's like a chef. Like, what can I do with these ingredients to make a really cool omelette? And that's essentially what I did there. So, there's a scene in the trailers you saw when a guy is moving the joystick. That joystick, right? I phoned up someone at Pinewood to get a quote to build the joysticks. I thought we're going to use it in the actual film, right? And it's like something ridiculous, like $2,000 or something. So I went on eBay and bought a game joystick for like 20 quid, right? And then in Nuke, I just painted out the logo. No one's going to know, right? It's a joystick. And it lights up as well, so it looks really cool. But then, on the back here, see those lights? They're not actual LED lights we put on. That's actually the battery chargers for the cameras. So I remember when we had a runner put in charging the batteries, I'm like, whoa, that looks really cool. So we're like, let's get all the battery chargers and charge them up. So we had them in the back. And yeah, it's just little production value, things like that, just to get the shot. Because I knew if I didn't have that, it would look really boring. You wouldn't have any depth. So that's kind of like thinking outside the box there, just to get your production. And again, if you look at the location up there, I did all my graphics beforehand, which is kind of a really popular thing now. But I did all my graphics beforehand. I knew what I wanted in the graphics and play them back, because the main reason is I'm just a lazy compositor. I don't really want to be comping those screen graphics or doing any roto or anything or tracking. So we played it all back, but it was really useful because then the actor will be able to react to it much better, and it just worked out way better too. And then I would then take all these little elements, these little LED lights. All these little LED lights you see here, that's from the server room. So I would just film, just take some couple of seconds of footage, film that, and then comp that in. So we got something that looks really sci-fi futuristic, but really done mostly in the compositing world. Okay, so now I'm going to really quickly break down Sync. The reason I want to break down Sync, because Sync, I think, to date, has been the only short film I've done which follows the traditional film model. So Kronos was just me being really guerrilla, like documentary. Origin Unknown, the teaser, we just went into some university and shot some stuff and put CG together. But with Sync, it was quite important for me because Sync was the last film I did, but also it's a film to demonstrate to the studio that I can follow the traditional way of making a movie, but still be really smart about it. So what I wanted to share with you is what the process was. So the pre-production process, I always say work within a budget, man. Give yourself a budget and stick to it. Don't say, oh, well, see how it goes, because you'll never get a movie made. Same with set yourself a deadline. I knew I wanted to present the script to the executives at a certain time. I knew I was going to go to Los Angeles at a certain time. So I made sure I set myself a deadline. And it's grueling. I worked crazy hours. And I remember people saying, my girlfriend would say stuff like, why are you working crazy hours for? It's your own film. I'm like, but that's the point. You set yourself a deadline, you stick to it. that's really important. If you have that strictness, it's worth it. And also plan. My God, I just can't stress enough. Plan. It saved me so much. Get the script right first. One of the things my manager has always told me, it's really good advice, is you can fix audio and visual effects and visuals in post. You can't fix a shit script in post. It's fact. So, watch some crappy films out there. It's a good example. So, I would write the script. And you got to remember, when you write a script for a short film, it's not like the final thing, right? We've all heard about the method of making a film. You make it 3 times. You make it first time when you write the script. You make it the second time when you're editing it, and you make it the second time when you shoot it, and you make it the third time when you're editing it. So I made sure that the script was approachable to all the actors. Keep your production tight, man. Like, I use Google Docs, Dropbox, massive fan of that stuff. It literally, if you keep your shit together, when you're on the day shooting, you don't have to worry about stuff like that. And everything I'm showing you here today is pretty much the same thing I show to the executives or the investors when they say, how are you going to pull this off? Yeah, I know you create this amazing thing, but how are you going to pull it off? And I show them my workflow, how organized I am. It provides confidence to the investors. And that's what you're doing as a filmmaker, especially a first-time filmmaker. So all that time and energy you're spending, you're instilling confidence in the investors to say, yes, I trust you with my money to go and make a movie. Here's an example of my resources. And because I'm self-financing it, I just break down everything. There's loads of favors, but keep that stuff tight so that you can sleep better at night, but also you can be more creative. More organization again, break down, do a schedule. Like, usually you have like a line producer do that stuff. But I didn't have the budget for line producers, so I kind of took that upon myself. Make a kit list, very important. Mood boards. When you're making a short film or a proof of concept, especially one that you're self-funding, most of the time you're getting people to help you out, okay? Like in my case, I got a lot of help from Escape Studios, like the students helped me out, and I had people on set helping me out. I had a good camera guy help me out, like my cinematographer, Adam Batchelor. I also had, just people helping me out. So as a filmmaker, the least you could do is be organized and be very specific with your direction, and because you don't want people helping you out and working crazy hours because you're not organized. That's horrible. So I want to get people interested in my film first, right? So I'll do these mood boards. I'll go in Photoshop, I'll knock out a bunch of mood boards, right? And then just get people excited and say, this is sort of mood it is. The cinematographer go, okay, I know sort of lighting you want. Some films I storyboard, some I don't. On this one, I storyboarded it. Again, just to get people interested in the movie. And you can see it's very close from storyboard to film. Very, very close. So I worked with a guy called David Ario to do that. Really amazing storyboard artist. And I think if it wasn't for the storyboards, I wouldn't have got the amount of people to help me out in sync. They really saw the vision and go, we want to be part of this. You're working weekends? Fine, we'll do it, because it looks cool. Do lots of testing. So we knew we only had 1 day to shoot in the car park, right? So the week before, we went down, just me and cinematographer and the main actor, and we shot loads of tests. We did tests, to see what ISO we should be using on the camera, what sort of angles I can get, how long does it take to bring stuff from upstairs from the other level down to the other level of the car park. Work all that stuff out, man. Have your shot list. Clearly, I can't draw to save my life. I'm a really crap artist when it comes to drawing. But those little doodles, right, actually helped on the day. Because not only did it help me understand what the shots were, but the first AD, the DP, everyone knew that I planned the film and what the shot list was. Have a shot list. So important, man. Trust me. And you can see here, I'm running through my shot list, and everyone's able to look at that shot list and be able to communicate. And that's the thing I learned working in visual effects as well, is as a VFX supervisor, you're communicating to your team of artists to make sure that the shots are delivered per client spec. No different here as well. When I'm making a film as a director, I'm ensuring that I communicate in the most succinct way to my team so that they deliver the best work on the time given. We did some previs, but we didn't do any hardcore previs. What we did was, me and the DP, we measured out roughly what the car park was, and then we built it in Google SketchUp. So this isn't in Maya, this is Google SketchUp. Let's see if I can show you really quickly what the Google SketchUp thing looked like. Yeah, maybe this one. But that came in really useful, actually, having that Google SketchUp here. Here you go. So that's the Google SketchUp. And so basically, I blocked out all my shots at home on a laptop before going on set. So we knew exactly what shots to do. So obviously, we didn't do that shot because that's like really expensive. And by the way, the camera's moving. It's me we're moving the camera. It's just me. We rendered out a 360 camera so I can see all the angles. But the bike, all of those elements you see there, they're just objects you get in Google Library, the Google SketchUp library. The only thing we built was the actual car part based on the measurement. But even something as simple as that impressed investors. They impressed financiers. They go, wow, you go to that level of planning to do that off your own back? But to be honest with you, I did it mostly so that I can sleep better, like knowing that what I'm going to go in and shoot. So you go, and you can see here, the previous is quite close as well. Wardrobe. You'd be surprised how wardrobe influences visual effects. So on this, we had Anna Sheldrick, who does a lot of cosplay. And that's the thing. I didn't go for a typical costume designer. I went with someone that builds, who's familiar with cosplay here? Yeah, great. Love cosplay. And she does cosplay. But the level of detail these talented girls and boys do in cosplay isn't phenomenal. It's amazing. So she came on board, and she would do all the bullet hits and stuff. But what we did was, we knew in visual effects we didn't want to add the bullet hits, right? So she would then take a section of the front part, and we would photograph that. And then in compositing, we'll then add on the bullet hits coming on, rather than painting it in Photoshop. So that came in useful. Also the visor as well, the way the visor was positioned. So my point is, I was discussing things like visual effects with the costume designer, which is quite rare, but I found it's very important because I really didn't want to do any CG digital doubles or anything like that. So this was an idea we had where we were going to shoot the bike scene. I was at the back of a car and we're filming. I thought, this is going to be cool, down the motorway. But then when we looked through the visor, not that helmet, but the actual helmet, the poor guy couldn't really see much out of that. So I don't think asking him to go down the motorway speeding at really fast speed would be really, health and safety. So we scrapped that idea. But we had to think quickly because we really wanted that shot. So what we did was, in the corner of the car park of Escape Studios, we had the bike on some sort of like stand, some sort of like support thing. And we didn't shoot green screen, in case you hadn't noticed. There's no green screen here. Mainly because the DP forgot the green screen, but that's a different thing. But you know what? That worked out to my advantage, actually, because if I put green screen, I would have had to deal with a lot of green spill and reflections and all of that stuff, which I don't want to do. So we lit it kind of overexposed. We kind of exposed mainly for the sink on the bike, which is completely black, as you can see. There's no hair or cloth, which meant that roto in it and getting a luminance key was straightforward. Also, having lights moving around the bike. That's just all someone just moving a light like that. So simple. Really easy, very effective as well. Lastly, for this section, shoot as much coverage. Shoot as much coverage. You don't have the luxury of doing reshoots when you're doing this sort of stuff. So I would have an A cam and a B cam and place them really wisely. Don't treat your B cam as something that, I'm going to capture something. Lastly, muzzle flashes, right? So like shooting muzzle flash. I don't like the idea of increasing brightness and contrast in the comp. That's not real muzzle flash lighting. So what we did was we shot on the Blackmagic production cam, which had a really good global shutter. And we just had a camera flash and DSLR. We just kept flashing that. And then when we add the muzzle flash, it looks real. So just stuff like that, just to think outside the box. And the funny thing is, I use the same sensibility here as I am when I'm making my feature films as well. Like smoke, someone had an e-cigarette, so we're blowing e-cigarette smoke up there. So that in the shot, you get this. That looks kind of epic. Corridor shots, just trickery. Just cram everyone in a tight frame. It feels big. Shoot as much data. I mean, there's tons of stuff. Like, I'm too lazy to comp, right? So I'll play everything for real. But, there's just, I can go on forever. But my point is, like, with today's visual effects, with all the tools available, there is literally no excuse for you not to make your film. So I'm going to quickly skip through this and just quickly go through to, oh yeah, there you go. Lastly, really quickly, once you've made your film, it doesn't stop there. I get loads of filmmakers that have made amazing movies. I'm looking at the film and go, why is this not a feature film? The thing is, they haven't marketed themselves properly. Get it out there. The big thing is you make films so that people watch them. So your job as a filmmaker is not just to go and make a film. Once you finish the movie, there's a whole another level of pain you have to go through, which is getting it out there. Have a strategy before marketing your film. Project Kronos was about space travel. So I contacted NASA. I got to all the the science fiction websites and space travel websites and got them to promote the film. Iris was about drones. So, I got like video game magazines. Sync was about cyber threats, so the whole cyber terrorism thing. Really target your audience and get it in magazines, man. People are dying for content. Really quickly also, if you're using a certain tool, say if you're using Photoshop or if you're using After Effects, get in touch with Adobe. Say, hey, I've just done a film using After Effects. Check it out. They'll promote it. Nuke, if you do something in Nuke, the Foundry girls are lovely. They'll go and promote your film. We're lucky Sync was being shown at NAB, IBC, and it's free publicity. So use that to your advantage. Yeah, pretty much that's it. So Q&A. Any questions?
Yeah, so in terms of getting that in front of those people that you're talking about, I mean, initial contact surely can't just be, hey, I've made a film, have a look. So what's the precursor to that?
Yeah, really good question. Well, I've got a manager, so he does a lot of that. But before that, you really just got to make sure you put it on Vimeo and just hopefully they will pick it up. Because the thing what I've learned is a lot of these big studios, they have little interns, like intern teams, and they scout YouTube and Vimeo. So, I mean, first thing you do is you make the short. Hopefully, I've got a Vimeo staff pick. So if you've got a Vimeo staff pick, it goes massively. And a lot of these studio executives have their little teams, and they look for Vimeo staff pick. Now, your film can't be guaranteed a Vimeo staff pick all the time. So, yeah, the other way you do it, which I didn't do, but the other way you could do it is when you make your proof of concept, is just approach production companies directly. Don't go through an agent because they're not going to represent you unless you've made something that's massive. So go to the production companies that makes similar movies. So if I was to do it that way, I'll go to production companies that make sort of like low-budget sci-fi films and approach them. And say, here's a short clip. Don't show them the whole film. Just take a snippet of it and say, look, this is what I've done. I'd love to have a meeting. I've got a property which I think would be worth it. That's one way of doing it.
My question is really about the general overview. Sure. You're obviously now the go-to guy to kind of make this kind of promo. Do you think you're putting a lot of pressure on VFX companies to kind of deliver spec pitches prior to getting the jobs, or do you think it's the way forward, it's the natural way forward?
Yeah, that's a really good question, man. Well, I mean, I don't know if you know, but a lot of visual effects companies are usually hired to do stuff like this as well. There are previous companies out there like the Third Floor. They do pitch material like this. I guess my point is that, if you're an independent filmmaker, you can do this yourself. And I don't think it will put pressure on other people, like other studios. I don't think so. I think if you are a VFX artist, you're doing that already. So, no, I don't think so. I think if anything, it opens opportunities for other filmmakers to say, hey, now I've got a way to get my vision across. I've got a way to pitch.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay.
To becoming a movie director, do you recommend going to school or just producing stuff on your own with your friends or family?
I think it's important you should go to school. I mean, look, I did a degree in media communication, right? And if I was being really flippant about it, I'd be like, oh, I didn't need to go to uni to make films. But I take certain things when I went to uni. I learned how to work in groups better. I learned how to communicate better. I learned how to finish things on time. Those are skill sets you pick. But, you don't necessarily have to go to film school to make movies. Not today, in a way. Maybe 10 years ago you would. But the thing is, though, that everyone's different, right? There's a group of people like myself who say, yeah, we're going to learn it ourselves and we're going to go and make stuff. There's another group of people that don't have that energy, for example, and they want to be taught how to do that stuff. And that's not a right or wrong thing to do. But if you are really hungry to make a film, and the technology is out there now, guys. I remember back in the day, I had to download like a pirate version, like Max, 3D Max or something. But today, you can get trial versions very easily. You can get educational licenses of Nuke, right? So if you're willing to learn those tools or collaborate with people, but just getting out there and do it. I mean, I've shot in Sync. There are shots in there, that pickup shot that I shot on an iPhone 4S, right? No one picked that out. So my point is, you can literally go and make a film if you want to. I think going to school is you'll learn from experienced people, and that's just as valuable. But for me personally, my experience was working in visual effects. That was my film school. Well, I'm gonna be around anyway. So if you recognize me, just like grab me and ask me whatever questions you want. And also feel free to tweet me as well. It's all good. Thanks, guys. All right.